True, by definition. Good money drives out bad money. False. Bad money drives out good money. You spend bad money. So good money is driven out of transactions. Gresham's law. To low, although Copernicus came up with it before Gresham, and maybe Isaiah came up with it before. It's in the Bible, actually, in Greek plays. To lower the unemployment rate, you must have a higher inflation rate. False. There have been times, the 1880s, 1890s, that the unemployment rate, the growth was high, unemployment's going down, and prices are going down. Have a negative inflation. Among the functions of money is storing value so people do not hold it expecting a capital gain or spend it to avoid a capital loss. Anyone? True. Violating what fundamental rule of test taking? The longer the question, the more likely it's false. Right? You shouldn't go by that all the time. Among the characteristics of money is portability. True. The lags in monetary policy are longer than the lags in fiscal policy. False. You can act, you can change your mind, and you can act much more quickly with monetary policy, for good or for ill. An increase in input prices like the price of oil reduces dynamic aggregate supply. True. Oil price shocks are bad for the economy. If there is no unit of account and 10 goods in the economy, there will be 90 prices in that economy. N by n minus 1 divided by 2. N is 10. 10 minus 1 is 9 divided by 2. 45. 45 is not 90. If you forgot to divide by 2, you would have got 90. The members of the Board of Governors of the Fed set the discount rate on borrowing from the Fed. True. Guess 8 is false, 9 is true. The excess reserve deposit ratio is controlled by commercial banks and inversely related to the money stock. True. Among the voting members of the FOMC is the comptroller of the currency. False. Just from that list. Who's on the FOMC? Members of the Board of Governors and 5 of the 12 Reserve Bank presidents have a vote. Always New York. Included in the M1 definition of money are demand deposits. True. The government debt is the change in government bonds outstanding or the deficit. False. The debt is basically B, or if you want, B plus M. The deficit, as we derived it that day, is basically delta B, or if you like, delta B plus delta M. The reason why people don't put the M part in it is the government owes you $1, what's true? You have $1, the government owes you what? Another $1. So, there's not really any debt, not anything that goes there. If the monetary base growth increases, then so does money growth and dynamic aggregate demand. True. Right there in the numerator, things in the numerator, if they increase, that increases M. So if the growth of B increases, the growth of M increases, and the growth of M affects dynamic aggregate demand. And of course, if we go back up to 10, you can see that the required reserve ratio is in the bottom. Things in the bottom, as they get bigger, the fraction gets smaller. Collateral values rise during recessions and fall during expansions. False. But another way, your house, does it go up in value during recessions and fall in value during expansions? No, it's the opposite. But if I switched it, they do magnify expansions and fractions. Expansions. But it's just that collateral values fall during recession and rise during expansion. If dynamic aggregate demand increases, then inflation arises. If dynamic aggregate supply decreases, then inflation rises and real GDP growth falls. To increase aggregate supply, the government could increase patent length, decrease tax rates, increase subsidies to research and development. All of those. To increase aggregate demand, the Fed or the government could lower the growth of the monetary base, raise the discount rate, increase the money supply growth. See, increase money supply growth. Right? If you lower the growth of the monetary base, aggregate demand, dynamic aggregate demand goes down. If you raise the discount rate, that will tend to lower the monetary base. Dynamic aggregate supply would increase if oil prices increase. There is a pandemic. Government regulation of business is decreased. C. The dynamic aggregate supply curve is the aggregate supply curve when? It's upward sloping, so it's short run. Right? Contracts are limited. They can only stop prices from changing for so long. The dynamic supply curve may be positively sloped due to Fed policy, tax receipt changes, contracts that slow, wage and price changes. I have done all the above on this before, where I'll say wages that adjust slowly to changes, sticky prices, contracts. That would be all the above, so I can change it into an all the above. I think this gave away some other questions. So, if I was going to change anything that day, I would have struck and aggregate demand out of this question. But to increase the money supply, the Fed could raise the discount rate, raise required reserve ratios, buy bonds on the open market. C. Buy bonds on the open market. If aggregate demand decreases, then inflation falls and real GDP growth falls. So D. If the Fed decreases the money supply, then aggregate demand, dynamic aggregate demand falls. That's the one I sort of gave away with 23. Right. Okay. What's our required reserve ratio? 10%. 10% is what fraction? 1/10. 1/10 divided into 1/10 means we're going to multiply something by 10 here. Okay. The bank in figure 1 can make an additional loan of the most what? $180,000. If people hold no cash, banks hold no excess reserves, and the bank in figure 3 is the only bank, it will expand deposits to what? 2 million. 200,000 divided by the 200,000 it has in cash divided by 1/10. So that we end up with all of our 200,000 being required reserves. And of course, what are we gonna end up? That's the answer to the next question. The bank will eventually hold required reserves of what? 200,000. Among the functions of a central bank are regulating the economy, running business, setting the money supply, or defending the exchange rate. C. You read too much bad press, they seem to think the Fed has a magic wand. They don't. Members of the Board of Governors include the comptroller of the currency, are appointed by the U.S. President, elect one of their members to be chair of the Fed. Are appointed by the U.S. President, the U.S. President appoints one of them to be chair of the Fed. Any questions on that? I know I went through it faster than I usually do. I didn't draw as many graphs, but Tuesday is looming pretty quickly, isn't it? All right. Now, I always have to temper myself when I see the grades on this test. Why is that? Anybody? A few of you punt. A few people say I have 2 really good grades, or I'm a nursing student, or I don't really care about this class that much and I've got 45 points or whatever. A few people punt. Now keep in mind that this is a macroeconomics class, so I'm going to, on the final, evenly cover the class, but when in doubt, I'm going to lean into the macroeconomics stuff. All right, there are the grades. Looks like we have, by my count, if we went 90, 80, 70, 60, we'd have 9 A's, 14 B's, 24 C's, 16 D's, 4 F's. That's not too bad a curve, actually. 22 above C, 20 below. But I said what? What have I promised from the very beginning? That the C is going to be curved for sure. So let's draw the C there. Let's draw the B there. Let's draw the A there. And I'm writing none of this down. Let's draw the F there. So we still have 4 F's. We have 6 D's. We have 31 C's. We have 16 B's. And we have 8 A's. Now, see, if I had to do it, I might do it like that. Really, if I have to do it, what am I going to do with these people right here? Let's say I end up with 57 out of. Right, there's only 2 of them, so what am I going to do? I'm probably going to look up their majors. right? If they're in the College of Education or in hotel restaurant management, I'm gonna really lean, see if I can find it in my heart to give them a D so they can move on. If they're in nursing and business, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it's sort of irrelevant whether I call that a D or a B, because you're gonna be back here in the summer or in the fall taking this class again. So, where do you stand? So basically, you should know right? So you've got essentially this is what we're doing, right? We're adding the sum of the QI, I equals 1 to 2, plus the final, right? And what's the sum of QI, I equals 1 to 2? Anyone? What's that mean? Well, how many quizzes did you take? 3. Which 2 do you think we're going to count? 2 highest. So it's whatever your grade is over here plus the final. And if you got a 30 and a 30, then you got 60, and you get 40 on the final, you get 100. So since it's a total of 100, it's pretty easy to figure your percentage. So let's say you have 45. Now, good thing is this final was Tuesday, not Thursday, because it turns out this would make a really good study. But I bet the later in finals week of final is, the lower the grades are. Because you just get tired. So let's say you don't do so well. You get 26 out of 40, a middle D. You still get it out of here easily with a C. Let's say you don't do so well. You get under 60%. It's 57.5. Well, you got 68 and you're hoping what? Well, first of all, you're hoping the test wasn't easy and the whole class didn't average 85 on the final, because that would kill you. But you hope that I'm sort of a man of my word and that will curve into a C. Probably will, but as most semesters. If you have a 50, to get out of here with a grade that you can move on, what do you have to do? Right? I mean, what you can really do is put down your sum of QI, 1 equals, I equals 1 to 2, QI plus F equals, and pick a number, 70 if you want, right? You know what this number is, right? And then you can solve for that number. Say, what do I have to get on the final to get 70% in the class, 80% in the class, 90% in the class? Yes?
So is that if you make a 20 on the final, or is that if, like, you get 20 points on the final?
20 points, 20 out of 40. By the way, I haven't said that yet. The final is 40 points, not 30. So 20 out of 40, you get a 50%. So basically, if you have 50 some odd points in this class, and there's a curve, if you even have 49, 48, you have to aggressively try to get back in here repeating this class. It can happen. Now, let's say you have a 39. 38 would be similar. You get the lowest possible C, 70% on the final. You're at 67%. You're at 67. And you hope the curve catches you. But you got a shot. You have a real chance. My bias is what? If you've shown you know something, maybe it's time to move on. But 35 is sitting out there. What's 35 say? What's 35 mean in this class? If all of you were laboratory rats, randomly picking, the average in the class would be 35. Right? So, you get down towards 50% in the class, it's hard for me to believe you might have been randomly picking and happened to get lucky, a little bit lucky. So there is sort of a floor beneath which I can't, at some point, how many points you are above random guessing, or you should move on. But I'm in favor of people moving on if they've shown a little bit. And while it's really important to you, the only thing I care about is the CD cutoff, because that's, and the DF a little bit for probably 10% of the people are in over a year, 10%, maybe 15 are in something other than nursing and business, where they don't have to have a C. By the way, when's our final?
Tuesday at 1.
Tuesday, 30 April 2024, 1 to 3 p.m. Final exam. When are you going to get the best grade you're ever going to get on the final exam? Tuesday, 1 to 3. But, what's the caveat?
You'll be gone after the last person finishes the exam.
The caveat is you'll get a higher score on the final exam if you live to take it, rather than if you die in an automobile accident trying to get here, right? So don't kill yourself just because I've said that. Things happen, right? Sometimes I have 220 students in 2 classes full of this. Something's going to happen to somebody when you have 220 people in a group. So, not always going to work out for everybody. All right, any questions about this? Everybody understand where they stand in the class? Another thing we could look at is total grades I have. I'm 24, and 31 is 55, plus 10 is 65. So I got grades for 65 out of the 70 people who started. And 55 of the 65 have 40 or above, right? So, everybody got a chance to get out of here. And even, 4 more people are right there at 39, 38. I mean, to get a 30 is not out of the question. So somebody had a question here?
Oh, I was just curious, about the curve. Would you, curve it to an A, or is it just, the C's?
Well, I would if, I don't have to worry about it because the natural break is, right, nobody's at 53. But yeah, look, if somebody ends up with 89 and then the next highest grade is an 86, and they're 90s, yeah, I'll probably call the 89 next. So yeah, it's possible that you'll get out of here. But I will say this, I do like to protect the A more than any other grade, because the people who did that, And look, I know all of you would rather have a B than a C, but guess what? The most arbitrary decision is what's a B and what's a C in a class, right? How do I know? You got unlucky. I discovered in graduate school, there was a set of people who wanted higher grades, and there were 240 people in the main classroom, and they showed it on video, the Principles of Economics on video, to other sections at the University of Florida. And so they had multiple tests, multiple versions of the test, and as I sometimes do. So they, but there were students who could get the hardest version of the test each time. And you couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't, and there are people who are just sort of 86, 87% students in this material who are just not going to get to an A. There are people, but, distinguishing between 78 and 81, that's really, really hard. As you can see, there's a surprisingly small mass of people at it now, but only 2 at 47, but look at 46, the largest number in the class right there. But anyway, the good news is I'm writing none of this down, right? I'm going to array the grades from 100 to 60 and down, 100 to 50 and down, and then draw these anew. I'm not writing any of this down. This doesn't matter. So, was there another question? Yeah.
Just so that we kind of know what to expect on finals day.
Yeah, that's the next topic. That's the next topic. Okay. First of all, on finals day, what's going to be true? What's going to be true finals day? The test will be 40 questions rather than 30. Guess how many will be true false? 20. So 20 true false. As usual, statement has to be always and completely true to be true. True, false, her t-shirt is red. What do we think? True, false, her t-shirt is blue. Well, it wasn't red, it was false, and it's different, so it must be true? No, that's not how true, false works, okay? I said the first day in class. All right. We're going to then have how many multiple choice? 4 graphs. Maybe 5. Last semester I did do 5. So, 1 graph like those on test 1. What were your graphs on test 1? Supply and demand. Production possibility curve. Trade. Well, let's just say absolute and comparative advantage. Data, right? Everybody agree with that? So that's one graph. All right, one like those on test 2. What did we have on test 2? Solo model, production function. Recession, expansion, peak, trough.
Well, you said we weren't putting that one in there.
We are going to mark an X through that in a minute, but let me get there. And what's the last one? Oh, unemployment, GDP, etc., data. And as we found out, as we remember, we are not getting to have this one.
Let's go. In 400 feet, take the right to North University Boulevard.
My bad.
No, that's all right.
Trying to figure out something for work.
No, that's fine. It's the modern world. I don't really understand these gadgets. You just have to have, people also sneeze in class, right? So that one's out. So we're down to 5. And then one graph like those on test 3. What are the 3 graphs on test 3? Aggregate demand, aggregate supply, short run. Aggregate supply, aggregate demand, long run. Bank, expansion of deposits. So, what do we know here? We got rid of that one. What do we know here? One of those 2 is going to be on there, right? Does anybody have any doubt about that? One of those 2 has to be on there. Especially since I said I'm going to lean into the macroeconomics of it. And then what? One other graph. So we got to take one of the, if I take production possibility curve, then maybe we'll put this as D, or maybe I'll have the solo model and I'll put the unemployment data as D. Maybe I'll put a couple of them, combine them, a couple of short ones. Right, if I put 5, then we have 9 graphs. But we deleted 1, we're down to 8. Then we sort of combine 2 and 1. All right, I'm probably not putting both the short run and long run, dynamic aggregate demand, aggregate supply on there. So then we're down to 7, and I get 5 out of my 7 graphs on there. I sort of like that. You, on the other hand, would like the one I X'd out, right? But you got to have it once. Does that completely answer your question about what to expect on the final?
I think so. Particular pencils, is it gonna be kind of the same?
Listen, everything's going to be the same. Everything's going to be exactly the same. I will know what you got on the final within 30 minutes of being done. You're going to run through a computer. Well, actually,
How fast are you put it in now?
I will, if you want to email me starting Wednesday, I like to sleep on my grades if I get them done. I am being maybe forced to go to something in Pensacola also on Tuesday, I'm not sure. That's up in the air. So if I go to Pensacola, that might slow me down, but I like to sleep on the grades. But if you email me, I will answer you. I will proselytize to you about majoring in economics some. And nurses could just say, no, I'm majoring in nursing, leave me alone, or something like that. But I will proselytize a little bit and suggest you take global economic issues this summer, or U.S. Economic history, which I'm teaching, or others, managerial economics, if you've had both principles. And some of you, this is my last damn day ever in economics, and if I can get through the final, right? So, trying to think whether there's anything else I can tell you. I guess I'll shoot the class an email about when the final exam is. And, but yeah, I'll just respond. I'll tell you what letter grade you got in class. I won't give you, if you want a lot of details, you gotta hunt me down. Yes, sir.
Do you email it out the finals?
No, but you can come look at it and give it. Sir?
That was my same question.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, and you're asking, I answered a different question than you asked. You mean, am I gonna email out an old final for you guys to study with? No, I think you got, the questions, obviously, I think, the questions are not gonna be the same. It's only gonna be accidental, right? I might ask a question that was from one of the two old test twos I sent you, right? I might ask it, it's worded exactly the same way, but that'll be an accident.
So study the old test.
But, study the material that's covered on the old test. I'm gonna cover the material that was on the old test. I'm going to, so if, I don't know, did I ask you guys about if income changes, what happens to demand on your test too? I have no idea. But anyway, if I ask about that, I might ask about, the price of, a substitute or a complement. I might ask about taste. Anything like that on this, on the final. But, I'm old and beaten down, so I don't know, what I really should do is have every test, old test I sent you in front of me, and every test you took sit in front of me, and when I get to the question on that, I should go look, make sure that yours is not repetitive. But I found they're not that, if I have one or two that are repetitive, that's not so bad. And of course, some of them, there is one thing I like to ask I ask you almost every test you've had in here, so you should get that right by now. But I'll let you guys read, but I've asked it in different ways. There's one thing that is a common theme in this class. Anything else? All right, go study.